Hi Laura.
Hello.
I've listened to your talk today and really impressed.
Thank you.
Can you tell me what inspired you to get into business?
Well, it was really the realisation that I wanted to create financial independence for myself at some point in the future, and at that time I was a freelance copywriter and I was exchanging time for money. And I realised that I was never going to create the sort of wealth that I needed to be financially free exchanging time for money, and so in effect I had to create a business. And seen as advertising was what I knew at that point, it made sense to create an advertising agency, which is what I did.
Was there any special person that I guess inspired you or gave you that ability to take that plunge, I guess?
Oh yeah, very much so. I did a course many years ago with Robert Kiyosaki, who is now the best-selling author of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series.
Incredible person.
Yeah, very successful, multi-millionaire investor. Back then, it was way before he'd written those books, and he was travelling the world with his business partners doing seminars and workshops, and I attended one of his workshops.
Right.
And it really did inspire me to look at my life differently and look at what I was doing with my business, my thoughts and financially. And so after spending 16 days at a course in Hawaii with Robert, I then created it was a nice place to be studying business.
Hawaii, Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's where I put the plan together to create my ad agency, and I came back to home, which is Wellington for me, and started my ad agency from scratch.
Wow. Laura, you've got a fantastic book, which I have read. But I read the Kindle version first, and I thought, oh, that was great, but being old-fashioned, I really wanted to have something that I could pick up.
There's something about a printed book, isn't there?
And mark the pages and write on it and all that sort of thing. But I'm just, you mentioned in your book leverage. Mm-hmm. Now, is this coming back to what you were saying about exchanging time for money? Could you just elaborate a little bit more on that?
Exactly that. It's the realisation that a business is actually not supposed to be you, the business owner, exchanging time for money. It's not supposed to be you going into work every day in order for the business to make money. At some point, the business needs to make money without the owner having to be there all the time. And that's the leverage component of it, where the business does more and the owner does less. And setting about your business in such a way that you create that, you set a business that's not dependent on you, the owner. That's what I mean by leverage in business.
So you would find, as I believe you are a business coach, business mentor, you would find that, I guess, with the speaking tours that you do, quite a number of people would be in that position. Very much so.
It's a very high percentage of the economy is made up of businesses with less than 5 employees, and many owner-operators who start a business because they're good at something, they have a trade, they qualify in something, or they just have a good idea and they're passionate about something. But very much it is a business that's about them. And my challenge working with business owners is to firstly change the mentality and the mindset that goes, it doesn't have to be about you, and that it shouldn't be about you. That's the first part, is the mindset, and then setting about creating a model with that business owner where we can actually look at what could it be, how could it be scalable, how could you grow it in such a way and re-engineer it in such a way so that it isn't totally dependent on you.
Yes. I've heard people say they've got a job, and job stands for just over broke.
And exhausted.
And exhausted. And I guess from your talk, that's really what a lot of people struggle with, isn't it? It's that they have the vision, but they perhaps don't have the ability. How do you feel about people being part of your team? I guess employing people or contracting people that are smarter than yourself?
I think it's absolutely essential in a business, and it's one of the challenges that business owners have to come to grips with, is they do have to overcome their ego. And it's ego and fear that drive that concept that only I can do it as well as I can do it. And I always say to business owners, that's true as long as you believe it's true. But it actually isn't true. It's a belief. And to overcome that, you need to believe that there are people that can do your job as well as you can, and there are people that can do jobs within your business far better than you. and start by filling up the jobs that you're not so good at, and eventually leave the one that you're the best at until last.
Yes. With your background, do you have any business qualifications, university, that side of things? Do people need that situation?
Well, that's part of what I say to business owners. If I can do it, anyone can do it. I left university with a degree in comparative American studies.
Oh.
So you can imagine
Yes.
how useful that's been. And then I studied to be a secretary so I could get a job. So I was a secretary and then I was an advertising copywriter. So I was a secretary and a creative person. I knew nothing about business. I followed a formula that I learnt when I was at business school with Robert Kiyosaki, and I adapted that formula for my own environment. And that's what I teach when I'm working, and that's what that's really what the book's about, it's 8 stages to creating a business that doesn't work without you, but it's a formula. And if you follow the formula, you too can do it, because if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Laura, you've written this fantastic book, and that I have read from cover to cover, and you've got the workbook. Can you just explain your thoughts on how someone should utilise this resource?
Yeah, well, I wrote it not as a book. Clearly it is a book, but I didn't write it as a book to read. I wrote it as a course to study, so that all the way through, it's in 8 stages, and all the way through there are exercises. And the reason I put the workbook with it is that to give you somewhere that you can actually do your writing and your scribbling and all of that stuff you can't do on Kindle.
Yes.
And if you do the 8 stages, here's my challenge, is there are 8 stages. Do 1 stage a week, do all the exercises for 8 weeks, and at the end of 8 weeks, you will have planned a business that isn't dependent on you and that can create financial freedom for you in the future.
Right.
That's the idea.
Fantastic. And I love the idea of the workbook, because a lot of times, I guess people going into business, they've come from a structure, and then they go into business and they've got to create the structure. So the fantastic part about the workbook situation is that helps them with the structure. So they're not left with a blank piece of paper to write notes and then go, oh, what am I going to do?
That's right. That is the idea
with these
of it.
notes.
Yeah,
Right?
that is the idea of it. It's practical. It's easy to read. It's written by someone who came from a non-business background. So it's full of stories. It's full of stories of my successes and my failures, and other people's successes and failures. Yes. And it's got a workbook to go with it. That's the idea. It's a complete set.
Laura, you're a very successful lady. How have you found the balance between family and business?
Well, I said this to someone the other day, is that there just seems to be time for everything. But it does help that I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day, so I add an extra couple of hours. And that's where I do my writing, and I'm actually writing a novel as well. So I do my writing in the morning before the kids get up, and I spend time with them after school, and I write and do stuff in the evenings if I need to. I don't work on the weekends. I keep weekends for family. So there's time. There is time. So
it's true that if you want something done, you give it to a busy person?
That's right.
Is that true?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is.
Thing,
if you like being busy, then it doesn't feel like work.
So I believe entrepreneurs and business people are born. And by that I mean, you can teach people to be an entrepreneur, but I think there's got to be something in here, in your heart. Who's the one person, apart from Robert Kiyosaki, that would have inspired you, that would be the person that you would go, oh, well, I learnt that or I felt that from? Who would that one person be?
It would be my father. He's passed away, but he's left me and my brother a legacy of entrepreneurship. We grew up in an environment where my dad started his first business, his only business, when I was 10. And he sold it in his early 50s and never worked again. And when he started that business, we had a very small house. And when he finished that business, we had a very big house. And we went through those stages. And so my dad has been a great inspiration for me.
Did you spend time as a family in those days communicating with Dad, around the kitchen table, listening, being immersed in that environment?
Well, We never talked about business, but I did lick a lot of envelopes. I think there was an element of slave labour in there. And we never talked about business at all. And I was, I went to university and studied comparative American studies, for goodness sake. So I had no interest. My brother didn't go to university. He went straight into work for my dad and started his own business. He's built and sold a couple of businesses as well. I came to it later on in life, and so we didn't talk about it. But I was immersed in it. I mean, he would bring boxes home of direct marketing letters that we all had to lick stamps and.
So you were part of the environment.
I went to work for him in the school holidays,
Right.
as his, on the reception and stuff
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
I did some modelling for his photocopiers.
Yep. And I think those sort of situations, you don't see the value in that until a lot later down the track, do you?
No, that's right.
As a child looking at stamps, you wouldn't be sitting there thinking, oh, this is great experience for me for later life. You'd be thinking, Dad sort of is getting slave labour.
Pocket money is what I was thinking, yeah.
Yes. So I think, though, when you look back in your time, those experiences are hugely invaluable, aren't they?
They are, and it really, I credit the book to my dad, or dedicate the book to my dad, and the environment in which I grew up in. I think I'm very fortunate that I grew up in an environment where an entrepreneurial spirit and hard work was what I was being immersed in without realising.
Yes.
So definitely.
So Laura, with all the wonderful things that you've done, and I could sit and listen to you speak for a long time, where to next?
It's a good question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I do have some exciting things planned. Liberate Your Business has always been, the plan is that there will be a series of Liberate books under the Liberate brand. And so Liberate Your Sales is currently being written by a very successful salesman who's just sold a business globally. And my idea is that I'm going to get experts to write all of the Liberate disciplines. So there'll be Liberate Your Marketing, Liberate Your Presenting Skills, Liberate Your Sales, and so on, so that there will be a whole suite of Liberate books. They'll all be written very practically, very easy to understand, full of exercises. Really, the idea is that a small business owner would get the complete set, and they would have everything they needed to know about business in one easy-to-read set. That's
Wonderful.
next. That's next.
That is fantastic. I love the branding, and I think it's very you. It's very unique also. And a point that you've made on several occasions that I've heard you speak is that you put branding at the top of your list.
Yes, I do.
And I think that what you've just said there, that really stands in good stead, doesn't it? Because the liberate your business, the liberate your is the key part to it, isn't it?
Key part. It's liberate. It's about freedom, but it's about, every book is about 8 stages to getting what you want.
Yes.
And branding is absolutely critical, and there will be a Liberate Your brand, so that you can find out my views on that.
Wonderful.
Great.
Laura, thank you very, very much for taking the time to talk to us today. Absolutely fabulous, and really look forward to what's next.
Great. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Thanks for your time.